your work-life balance. Today, I have the pleasure to be with Hayes McCrary, and we are going to talk about this week's fundamental. Good morning, Hayes.
Good morning, Terry. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, and thanks for being with me today. So my question for you is, this week's fundamental is own your work-life balance. What does that mean to you, and how do you demonstrate it in your work and in your personal life?
I think work-life balance is critical for everyone throughout this country, the world, to maintain the most productivity. Aspects of the work-life balance are time management, prioritization, setting boundaries, taking breaks, self-care, and seeking help. Each one of those is kind of feeds into another, I think. Taking breaks, I think, is important, especially after large deliverables. I like to take a little break. Might be as long as a minute, might be as long as 15, depending on the size of the deliverable. There's something that's very taxing mentally, as far as a deliverable to a client. Um, Also helps to take a break and then go back and look at it again. So before sending it out, that's one way I think work-life balance works well in the work environment. Also setting boundaries as far as my time, as someone who has 6 kids, that's critical for me to make sure that one doesn't bleed into the other. That said, obviously there are uh, emergencies that can pop in and overrule all else. And sometimes that's a work emergency, sometimes that's a personal emergency. But that said, in addition to those daily sort of routines, um, I think vacations, the self-care piece is huge for me to bring the best uh, productive work habits I can into my daily life, or into my annual life for that matter. I think working out, all these things play into feeling good about yourself, feeling good about what you're doing, and how you're producing for your employer and for your clients. Um, that said, obvious benefits of work-life balance are improved mental and physical health, improved productivity and job satisfaction, stronger relationships, that's both personal and or professional, and greater personal fulfillment. So I think this is a key tenet of Broad Street's principles, and I think we should all focus on it as much as we can. And I mentioned seeking help earlier, and that I think through EAP or otherwise, some of us have struggled. I have struggled in the past with either focusing too much on one or the other, and sometimes a third party assisting you to figure it out. Maybe a therapist can always help.
No question, no question. You made some really good points. Um, but it means something different to each of us. So the setting the boundaries, it could be establishing clear work hours and avoiding extending working beyond those time periods. So for example, if you're working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., those are your work hours, then not really working at 8 p.m. unless it's an emergency, not routinely working at 8 p.m. because you've already set um, like the parameters or the boundaries for that. When you mentioned self-care or taking the breaks, like for me, a small break, it like recharges me. It kind of, like you said, gives you refocus, and then you can forge ahead like you're starting fresh. Um, Ask for help from family, from friends, from a coworker, um, remote the remote work. and flex hours, having flexibility and being adaptable, because different days create different scenarios and you have to be able to adapt as needed.
Totally agree. And I'll say one thing that I think is important, that Broad Street, and leadership here has never made me feel as if personal life balance was a thing to take lightly. And I try to, as a leader of my team, encourage that same philosophy. Um, I think it's important from the top down to focus on work-life balance, and I'm glad that it's one of Broad Street's founding tenets.
For sure, for sure. And it's something that, we all have to work on, because it's very easy to get consumed with our work because it's, so encompassing. We have so many demands that are put on us.
I think it's natural to lean that direction. And I think you're right. If the workload is high, you just want to get through
Finish
it. And
it. You just
sometimes,
want to
right.
finish it, so you just keep going. And
Well,
that's fine sometimes, but if you're someone who does that consistently to the point that you have no balance and you have no time for exercise or spending time with family or any of those things that might recharge you, that's a problem that you have to individually address. Because again, this fundamental means different things to different people.
totally agree. And I will say, early 2020, I think a lot of us found, oh, hey, we're working from home now. Our lives are going to be that much easier. And, where I found myself a lot was at the computer at 8 p.m. instead of normal when I would be off at 5 or 6, and
Right,
headed
right.
home. But my wife was particularly bad about that. And suddenly she was all that working from home meant that she was on her computer from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. every night. Thankfully, she's managed to control that now and work more regular hours. So.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Flexibility is important too. So as usual, I'm going to leave everyone this week with 4 quotes that speak to this week's fundamental. The first one is, don't confuse having a career and having a life. Hillary Clinton. Number 2, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. That's Stephen Covey. And wish not so much to live as to live well, Benjamin Franklin. And the last one is Martin Luther King. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. It isn't by the size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are always. That's a really good one. So thanks again for your thoughts and for your time with me today on this week's Fundamental. Remember, Broad Street, own your work-life balance and have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Terry.